This tale takes us back to the year 1988 when my family and I relocated to a different neighborhood on Maple Avenue, 5th Cross. I was merely a 7-year-old boy. Yet, the memory of that house is as clear as day. It was an ancient Georgian house with tall columns, pediments, and broad balconies. The grand wooden windows adorned with intricate carvings were crying out for a fresh coat of paint. The rooms seemed to go on forever, each one holding its own mystery. The house was magnificent, but felt too spacious for our small family of 3. Honestly, I longed for our old home. So, with our familiar furniture and pictures, Mom tried to transform the spooky mansion into our home. Dad even installed a slide in the backyard to cheer me up. However, no matter what my parents did, I didn't feel happy, nor did the new house feel like home. Every single night, I would have peculiar, disturbing dreams. I would find myself lying on the bed, defenseless and powerless, while a little boy stared at me from the shadows. That recurring nightmare filled me with terror, and I finally mustered the courage to tell my mom. She remained quiet and reacted in a way I hadn't expected. She confessed that she had also been having similar dreams about a little boy aimlessly wandering around our house. The conversation with Mom scared me even more. I believe she spoke to Dad about it because that same day, a tall man dressed in a long white robe appeared at our door. He held a cross and a vial in his hands. After walking around the house, he returned to the main door, whispering arcane words while sprinkling something from the vial. I didn't understand what he was doing, but it felt right. Later, Mom explained to me that he was sanctifying the house, driving away any malevolent presence that might have taken residence inside. It's strange to believe, but for a brief period, things became normal. Nights were calm, and I began to have regular dreams. But one afternoon, while coming back from school, I saw something that chilled me to the bone. The slide in the backyard moved back and forth on its own, while the leaves of the trees remained still, untouched by any wind. I tried to dismiss the unease, convincing myself it was just the wind playing tricks on my mind. But as time passed, that unsettling feeling of being observed never left me. My body froze with fear, and I ran inside, calling out for my mom. My mom's face turned pale when she saw me in that state. No matter what she said, my panic only escalated. We didn't have a telephone back in those days. All we could do was anxiously wait for Dad to return from work. I still remember there was an eerie oddness that seemed to have taken over that house. My mom's silence was deafening as she tightly held my hand. I could see in her eyes that she too had encountered something that was beyond normal. After waiting for an hour that felt like forever, the front door finally creaked open, and my dad walked in. Mom wasted no time in sharing the uncanny events inside the house. Her words tumbled out in panic and haste. That was when I learned that Mom had experienced something just as strange. She had heard the laughter of a little boy echoing through the hallways that same day. My body trembled with fear. Dad rushed to get the same priest, and he looked over the house with disappointment. I could tell that there was something dreadful about that house, and moving elsewhere was in our best interest. Dad suffered a significant loss on the house since we couldn't find buyers for a long time. However, later the government bought the property. About a decade later, roughly in the year 2004, the government demolished the mansion with the intention of turning it into a nature reserve since it was partly in the wilderness. Now, this is when things get really strange. As the construction workers dismantled the mansion, they found a decomposed body and remains of a little boy. The police opened up that case in hopes to close it forever. So they called Dad, since he was the last owner of the property. My mom and I looked at each other in horror. The dreams about the little boy and sensing his presence wasn't our imagination after all. We all went to the police station and gave our statements. I'm not sure what happened after that, but this is one story that I always share when people tell me that they don't believe in stories about the supernatural. This occurred when my sister and I relocated to a new apartment shortly after I graduated from college. We both desired a cozy 2-bedroom apartment in a pleasant neighborhood. We found one within a few weeks of searching. We considered ourselves fortunate. At least, that's what I believed. The apartment had a lovely balcony with a view of the city and a compact kitchen. It was everything we had ever wanted. We invited some friends over for a housewarming party. We had a great time, but my sister, Lisa, had an early morning shift the next day. So we ended the party early. The next morning when I woke up, Lisa had already left. She was truly thoughtful, as a cup of tea, pancakes, and a note saying, "For my amazing sister," was waiting for me on the kitchen counter. The whole scene could have been an Instagram post if only the story ended there. Lisa had to leave for a work conference that kept her away for 2 days. We were both used to living independently before moving in together, so it wasn't a big deal. I was getting used to our new apartment all by myself, looking forward to some alone time. I had a book reading marathon planned for the day with my favorite snacks. As the day went by, the weather started to deteriorate. I went to close all the windows when I noticed an old woman in front of our building. There was something strange about her, although I couldn't quite put my finger on it. I gave her a friendly wave, hoping for the same in return, but she just kept staring at me without blinking or even waving back. I thought she was just a peculiar person, so I simply shut the windows and carried on with my day. As the day went on, the woman caught my attention, and I found myself constantly checking on her. I did see her a few times from my window. It did unsettle me a bit, but I've encountered my fair share of odd people, so I didn't let it bother me too much. That night, after talking to Lisa, I made my bed and prepared to sleep. I decided to take a quick bath before sleeping. As I was bathing, I heard noises outside on the street. I was puzzled, so I went to the window and looked out. It was that eerie neighbor dragging something rough across her lawn. It was 10 p.m., and I wondered why she would do that. It seemed to me she was trying to hide something. Regardless, I ignored the woman, and eventually fell asleep. The next morning, I got up and went to the front door to grab the mail. The woman was awake too. With her emotionless face, she watched me through her window. I acted as if I didn't see her and walked inside. Soon, I started to feel uneasy thinking about that woman. Honestly, her actions didn't make sense. I obviously didn't want to worry my sister, so I didn't tell her anything. Instead, I called up my best friend Emily and vented about the whole situation. Emily insisted on spending a night at my place to keep me company. She arrived in the evening and swore that a woman was walking around inside my fenced yard. She couldn't make out the woman's face, but according to her, the figure resembled an old woman. I was filled with fear hearing all that. Having Emily over felt like the best decision ever. We locked all the doors and did everything possible to ensure our safety. At around midnight, I heard a strange noise coming from the window. I tried to dismiss it, blaming my overactive imagination, but when the sound persisted in a repetitive manner, I became alarmed. It sounded like someone was banging on the wall or something. I quickly got up from the bed and looked around. To my horror, it was that woman from my neighborhood. She was standing outside my bedroom window trying to peek in. Her eyes looked large, and there was a smirk on her face. I was terrified and screamed at the top of my voice. Emily also rushed towards the scene. The woman was shocked to be caught so quickly. She swiftly fled the scene. I immediately called 911. The woman was found hiding inside her house. She denied the accusations, but the street CCTV clearly showed her walking in and out of our yard. My sister came the next day and I told her the entire story. She was angry at first because I had kept the story hidden from her, but she understood I didn't want to give her additional stress. In the following days, we found out that the woman had been a convicted stalker and had recently returned home after serving her prison sentence. My sister and I don't live there anymore, and whenever I feel slightly scared, I call her or inform the police, which has helped to maintain my sanity. Ever since I left my family's nest, I've been living alone. There's a certain tranquility that comes with solitude. So, when I relocated to a new dwelling, I ensured it would be my peaceful haven. It was a tempestuous night in December. I was too exhausted to cook, so I ordered some food. I planned to watch a film before dozing off, but sleep overpowered me. As soon as the TV was off, I plunged into a profound slumber. However, less than an hour had passed when a noise shattered the silence, jolting me awake. Even though my eyes were shut, I was alert, trying to discern the source of the sound. It was a knock on my bedroom door. I was taken aback, given that I lived alone. I squinted my right eye in the darkness. My sight was still fuzzy from sleep. Undeniably, I saw a man in my room. I rubbed my eyes for a clearer view. A wave of terror washed over me instantly. He was a tall figure, about 6 feet. In the pitch-black room, it was nearly impossible to make out his face. He seemed to blend into the night's darkness. A shiver ran down my spine. An unnamed fear consumed me. I had always been meticulous about locking the door, so it was highly unlikely for the man to be in my house. My body felt leaden, and I wished to vanish from there, but let's be real, that's not a feasible escape plan. I wanted to scream at the top of my lungs. However, my voice seemed to have deserted me. My mind was filled with questions, but no words came out, only loud groans. I tried to rise from the bed, but it felt like I was stuck to the mattress. The more I fought, the deeper I sank. My only escape seemed to convince myself it was all a nightmare, and force myself back to sleep. I clenched my eyes shut. When I opened them, the man was nowhere to be seen, but my bedroom door was ajar. I managed to get out of bed and switch on the lights. I was alone. Gathering all my strength, I looked around. That's when I felt a severe pain in my head. The man had struck a large rod on my head. I felt immobilized. Soon, 3 other men emerged from the darkness. They started dragging me down the stairs. My body throbbed as I was being hauled down. Unable to lift my head, I stared at them. My eyes darted from left to right, wondering about their next move. Soon, they bound me to a chair and taped my mouth. I was bleeding profusely from my head, and the pain was excruciating. I felt utterly trapped. My mouth was agape, my eyes wide, and my body struggling to survive. Tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. They left me in the darkness and began to rummage through the house. I was a bachelor and didn't have a lot of cash or pricey possessions at home. All they could find was a few $100 bills, some loose change, and a watch. I could tell that the men were disappointed and arguing amongst themselves. They abandoned me and fled from my house. I felt helpless and managed to drag myself towards the front door. One of the neighbors spotted me and came to my aid. At first, they couldn't believe me since the neighborhood had always been safe with no such criminal incidents. But when I showed them my injuries, they promptly dialed 911 and I was rushed to the hospital. The next day, when I regained full consciousness, I was able to narrate the events to the police. They searched the property and immediately suspected the previous house owner. They tried to reach him, but he was uncontactable. Finally, they found him, and after hours of questioning, he confessed. The man had sold the house to pay off his debt, but when he found out a bachelor was buying the house, he assumed I was wealthy and an easy target. So, with his accomplices, he planned to rob the house. I was too terrified to live alone after that. I'm married now, and I still get scared whenever I hear noises at night. I won't deny that I still get frightened at night.